Welcome to the Bill Seng podcast. I am Bill Seng, and we're recording a little bit later tonight than what we usually do. So if you happen to hear a cricket in the background, I actually had to take care of that earlier. I was about to record, I heard a cricket, and so I decided to go over to see where the cricket was so I could make it be quiet. And I did not harm the cricket, by the way. I didn't even find the cricket. I just happened to open up the door, smell a skunk, close the door, but apparently the cricket was close enough to the door that I was able to scare it, and it is now silent. So that's no guarantee that's going to remain silent. And if it does start chirping again, then I guess we got some background music for today. Once again, I'm Bill Seng, and this is the Bill Seng Podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We are looking for 1,000 subscribers for YouTube and 1,000 subscribers for Rumble. So get to it if you haven't yet. Subscribe to YouTube, subscribe to Rumble, and let's make the show a big success. So a couple things I want to talk about tonight. The first couple I'm going to kind of breeze through. The reason why we are recording late tonight is because my family and I went to the Columbus Zoo. So that was a lot of fun. I actually want to talk about that a little bit. I think that's pretty cool. But the first two items I have on the agenda are more so for those of you that have a more serious taste in programming. And that first one being the fact that South Korea created a nuclear fusion reactor that achieved 1 million degrees Celsius. 1 million degrees Celsius. What's the significance behind this? It means that they are moving closer to being able to unlock the secrets of nuclear fusion, which is going to be an energy source that is far superior to anything that we have right now. It will revolutionize the energy industry. Now, what I do have to ask, though, this happened in South Korea, and I believe it's the Seoul, I think it's pronounced Seoul, Seoul National University, or SNU. And what the article says, this is an interesting engineering. It says, nuclear fusion is a promising method of power generation since massive amounts of energy is released when two nuclei with low atomic weights are combined. So the nuclei of two atoms are fusing together, and somehow that creates energy. What I do want to point out, though, real quick before continuing, is that, you see, I'm right about this. I was right about this before, that if we invested in nuclear energy, we would find ourselves in the Jetsons. Really, nuclear energy is far superior to anything that we have right now. So it's something I think we need to make more progress towards, is not... I think that we have to continue to develop fossil fuel energies, but while progressives and Democrats are trying to make policies to make sure that we use what they call green energy, like windmills and solar panels. There's the cricket right now. How about that? Windmills and solar panels. South Korea at Seoul National University, they're investing in nuclear energy and in nuclear fusion. It's just next generation futuristic technology. Now, it says that in the article, again, this is interesting engineering, it says we are still a good deals away, a number of decades away from achieving nuclear fusion. And in fact, they don't really even understand everything that's going on inside of this reactor right now. So it's really incredible. I'm really excited to see what results of this. I don't know a lot about it, to tell the truth, but I am very fascinated by nuclear energy, and whenever I'm able to pick up tidbits here and there, I want to make those public to you. I want to allow you to know those things. And my suspicion is that it's possible that maybe America is a little bit more invested in nuclear energy than what certain people are letting us know. It's just I don't know if we are disclosing the technology that we are using nuclear technology, the nuclear energy for. But again, that's for another day. I don't really have any other information regarding that. It's just a suspicion. So nuclear energy, where is America in investing in nuclear energy? And kudos to South Korea. Next thing on the item. I have a new nickname for this person, by the way, what we call the Vice President of the United States, Kamala 3-Count Harris. Yes, she's got a new nickname in my book. She is now Kamala 3-Count Harris. I'm not even going to bother to explain that name. You got to do your own research on that. Kamala 3-Count Harris is now calling the Supreme Court of the United States activist. Why is she saying that they're an activist court? Because they decided to overturn Roe versus Wade, and now she's saying that they're an activist Supreme Court. Now, once again, in case you haven't heard, what was the overturning of Roe versus Wade? Did it ban abortion? In an absolute sense, no. In no way did it ban abortion. What it simply did is it said that, hey, abortion is not mentioned inside the Constitution of the United States, so the federal government and the Supreme Court is not, well, the Supreme Court specifically, is not going to make a ruling on cases in regards to whether or not abortion should be legal state to state. It's up to the states to determine whether or not abortion is illegal. Before this, abortion was considered to be a right guaranteed to people, and that was wrong because it was not a right guaranteed inside of the Constitution. Now, Kamala 3-count Harris happened to say that this is a right that was guaranteed to women for half of a century now. So how dare they take this away? It was a precedent that was set so long ago, and what she calls it, though, is not the right to have an abortion. It's the right for women to determine what they can and cannot do with their bodies. Well, I have some news for you, Kamala 3-count Harris. Women have a choice in most cases regarding whether or not they have an abortion, whether or not they become pregnant. And Kamala 3-count Harris, I'm curious as to whether you know how babies are made. And something tells me that you probably do, because your political career was started by doing such a thing. So don't pretend you don't know where babies come from, and don't pretend this is about women making choices with their own bodies. And I want to remind you of something else. You ever heard of the 1619 Project? I don't like the 1619 Project. They're trying to say that America was founded in 1619 when slavery started. But having said that, slavery was legal in the United States for 200 years. Yes, for over 200 years, slavery was legal inside of the United States. Now, again, America was not a country until 1776. That's a different story. But as they're trying to say, 1619 is when the first slave, I'm not trying to say, in 1619 the first slaves were brought over from Africa. And so it existed in the United States and in America for 200 years. So on a moral grounds, does that mean that it's okay? I mean, my goodness, slave owners had the right to own a slave for 200 years. How dare anybody overturn that right for them to own slaves for 200 years? You see the reasoning here? Just because a law has longevity, or that what they're calling in this regard a right has longevity, doesn't make it right. But the problem is, neither abortion nor slavery were mentioned in the Constitution of the United States of America. Neither one of those was a guaranteed right inside of the Bill of Rights. Therefore, they have no ground to be a right across the country. It is up to the states to determine whether or not that they can be legal. And in fact, in regards to slavery, I believe that was the case, which is why you had the North-South divide. And Abraham Lincoln created a huge divide, and I'm not criticizing that in any regard. Abraham Lincoln created a huge divide when he decided that he wanted to go ahead and abolish slavery. And again, that was done through a legislative process, but the abolition of slavery is what, across the board, making it illegal for anybody in the country to own slaves, is what is one of the factors that led to the Civil War. So longevity does not equal morality. So you cannot say just because something was legal for 50 years means that it's okay now. So neither slavery nor abortion was in the Constitution. So you cannot say that those are rights. And it's not the Constitution per se that even says what are rights. God himself determines what rights are for humankind. And if you think you have a right to take another person's life, you're a very warped person. God only gives that right to governments that are exercising justice inside of their nations. And as far as I can think, nobody else. And that includes, of course, people who serve in the military, because that is a branch of the political of a political nation, is their armed forces, which is why that operates in such a capacity, and why the church is not all churches are completely against military service and war. And not to say that anybody likes war. Anyway, so into the real topic for today, the topic I want to spend the majority of my time, and that is the Columbus Zoo. They redid the Columbus Zoo a little while ago, and before they redid it, my wife and we had been to the Columbus Zoo, I believe, before we even had kids, and it was an incredible experience. It was good, but we have the Toledo Zoo not too far away from us as well, and the Toledo Zoo by and far overshadowed the Columbus Zoo. Just the attractions they had there were, in my opinion, way better laid out. There were more animals. The types of animals that they had were more attractive. The Toledo Zoo back then was a far better experience. Today's experience, so this is a good number of years later, we went to the Columbus Zoo as a family today, and what they did to it is amazing. The layout of the Columbus Zoo, in my opinion, compared to the last time I went to the Toledo Zoo, which is a nationally ranked zoo, by the way, that it's one of the top zoos in the country, I think the Columbus Zoo is better now. I think that they actually achieved that landmark in surpassing the Toledo Zoo in Ohio in terms of its quality, its displays. It was easy to see all the animals for the most part. I mean, there's a few here and there that were difficult to see, but normally when you go to the zoo, you have to really work hard to scope out the lions. Well, we went to Columbus Zoo today, like I said, and we saw the lions in passing. And so when we saw them in passing, we actually had to stop. We're like, whoa, lions, there they are. They're right there. Well, let's take a look at them. And by the way, they were the lionesses, and I think there's 3 lionesses. I don't know if there's a male lion. I did not see the male lion, but we did see 3 lionesses, and it was incredible. My wife was all freaked out about it because these are big cats. And one of the zookeepers came out, or volunteers or workers, whatever you want to call it, came out, and she had some food for these lionesses. And there was no fence where we were standing. Instead, there was just a pit, essentially, between the wall that separated the people from the lions. And the lions, I didn't look down to see how far the pit went, but the lions knew to stay out of the pit, basically. So the lady stood across from the lions and tossed them these balls of food. And one of them caught it right in their mouth. The other ones had to look on the ground to get them. But it's an amazing display. My wife was thinking, we better get out of here before one of these things jumps the fence. I was like, there's no way it's going to jump the fence. That's too far, and there's a pit there. But it was an incredible experience. That's how visible these lions were. You could see them for how big they were. No glass between us and them. Now, there were parts where there was glass between us and them, but in this part right here where they were feeding lions, no glass. Open air. And the lions were out in the open. It was really, really cool. The camels. The camels were one of the first stops that we made inside of the zoo today. And the camels, some people think they're cool, some people don't. But when we walked in, I wanted to get things started off on the right foot. And one of the camels was eating and just kind of ignoring us. And so far, it's seen many people walk by and not even say a word to the camel. So I put on my camel voice and started speaking Camelese. And I can't remember what my camel voice was, but I created a camel voice of my own. And just seconds after I started talking to it, it lifted its head from its food and it started staring at me. And I moved to the side, and it tracked me. It followed me, and then eventually it went over to its friend on the other side. And as I went over there, its friend started staring at me. I'm like, what's going on here? It's acting as though it was understanding what I was saying as I was talking to it. And again, I wish I could remember my camel voice. I would do it for you right now. But the camels were actually pretty cool. I made some new friends out at the zoo, and one of the other friends that I made was an alligator. I'll probably be posting that picture on Facebook, me hanging out with my alligator friend. It was a really cool alligator. Now, at the Toledo Zoo, I don't think they have it anymore, but they used to have this huge crocodile. And I believe its name was Godzilla. And they used to have this huge crocodile out at the Toledo Zoo. And that was always fun to see, but it was hard to see it through the water and the reflections and all that. This alligator was laying right out in front for everybody to see. And I joked with my wife about that I should just reach over the fence and grab its tail because that's how close we were. I actually could have done that if I wanted to, which you might think, oh my goodness, that's kind of frightening. No, I'm a fairly tall guy and my arms are long, and I could have reached over the enclosure and I'd have had to lean over quite a bit, but I could have grabbed the thing's tail if I wanted to. Instead, what I decided to do was get a photo op inside the glass because it was laying right in front of it. Beautiful view of the creature, and I don't know what it is about alligators particularly. Crocodiles, they look very dinosaur. Crocodiles look very dinosaur. So do alligators. But the coloration, I think that it's the coloration and the shape of the mouth of alligators that I like so much. They're normally a darker color than what crocodiles are, and I like that a lot. The mouths are normally a lot more stout and round, and I think that's pretty neat as well. Which, by the way, I have to mention this. I meant to mention this right away as soon as I got into this segment of the podcast. But Dinosaur Island. I'm going to get into Dinosaur Island here shortly because that was one of my selling points on the zoo when my wife asked me if we should go to the Columbus Zoo. She brought up Dinosaur Island. I'm like, we're going. We're going. I don't know if many of you remember this, but there was a little place called Prehistoric Forest, I believe up around Port Clinton. And my family, when I was a kid, we would go to Prehistoric Forest pretty much every year for a little while. And it was such an incredible place. Loved it so much. In Prehistoric Forest, the way it started off is that you rode on a train through this jungle full of statues of dinosaurs, paper mache, I think they were. And not just dinosaurs. Actually, also there was a giant sloth, a giant bird, and other sorts of things. They were there, and they all had these sound effects rigged up to them. It wasn't the most high quality thing in the world, but I loved it. And the way it started off is it was a train ride through the forest, and you saw these sights. And underneath your seat, you had little machine guns you could pull out, and you could shoot the dinosaurs with them as you drove past. It was a really, really cool experience. And I told my wife, I wish there was something around here that was like Prehistoric Forest. I told her we should start a Prehistoric Forest. I love that place so much. And the way that happened with Prehistoric Forest, what happened with them is that first they had the train and the guns. Well, then the guns got taken away, and I think that was because of a complaint. And then over time, they took the train away, so it was a walk-through path, and then over time, it just went out of business, sadly. By the way, you can catch a glimpse of at least the front gate of Prehistoric Forest in the movie Tommy Boy. So if you've ever seen Tommy Boy, there's a scene where David Spade's character, whose name is Richard, I believe, whacks Tommy across the face with a 2x4, then he looks behind him and is like, Prehistoric Forest! So, classic scene in my book, but also nostalgic in regards to it reminds me of Prehistoric Forest and those good old days, riding on the train, shooting the dinosaurs. We'll talk more about Dinosaur Island here in a minute, and I wasn't disappointed. My favorite animal this year at the zoo. So my favorite animal in general has fluctuated from animal to animal. And I have to say my favorite animal overall right now, is are alligators, okay? I'm not saying that necessarily was my favorite one at the zoo today because the alligator was very immobile, beautiful sight of it. I'm going to say that it was probably at least 6 feet long. But to me, what stole the show in terms purely of the animal itself was the Komodo dragon. They have a huge Komodo dragon at the Columbus Zoo. And I don't know if it was a male or female, but at first it was just kind of doing one of those Superman arching things, and it was just laying there for a good while, for like probably 3, 4, 5 minutes when we first got near the enclosure. And then right when we started to walk away, my wife and my kids were around the corner, and then all of a sudden it started to walk. So I called them back. I was like, you've got to see this. and it was an amazing thing. I told them the thing about Komodo dragons is they're just like dinosaurs. I mean, when I see a Komodo, this giant walking is like, my goodness, that is the picture of a dinosaur right there, watching this Komodo dragon walk. So for me, the showstopper was the Komodo dragon, particularly when it was walking. And most of the time with reptiles, you don't see a whole lot of walking. Most of the time, they're just sitting there kind of sunning themselves. And this one, something got to it and it started moving around. So that was incredible. Made my day today. That was just one of the many things that made my day today, that is. My wife's favorite animal, the basilisk lizard. The basilisk lizard was her favorite animal. This one's also nicknamed the Jesus Christ lizard because it can actually run across the water. Incredible creature. And there's actually two of those we saw. One of them was by itself. The other one was in a tank with an alligator snapping turtle. I'm like, wait, those can live together? Because I'd imagine the snapping turtle would bite its feet off, but it was just leaving it alone. The basilisk was on a branch above the snapping turtle. The snapping turtle looked like it was looking straight up at it, and it just kind of left it alone. But beautiful animal. I never knew how big basilisk lizards were, but it was a pretty decent sized lizard. And if you're not familiar with them, this one was green, a very beautiful green color. It had a a crest sticking up from its head, and it had a dorsal, I don't know what you call it, dorsal spine, dorsal fin, I don't know what you call it exactly, sort of like a fan that it had on its back. Very cool creatures, both of them did. So that, I have to agree, that was an incredible animal as well, even though I preferred the Komodo dragon over that. I guess I have to get into my son's favorite animals as well. I believe that Jaden's was also the alligator, but Carter said that his favorite animal at the zoo today were the elephants, and they had a very good elephant exhibit. Again, these are just things that I think that you just need to get out there and check out, as they are very visible, very accessible to the public for when you walk in and you want to check out the animals. Well, if you happen to hear a door in the background, my wife actually came in. I have to make an edit here because she wanted to correct me on something, that her favorite now is the lions. And she said that they're just so cute. They look like you reach right over the fence and pet them. Don't pet the lions, of course. Do not feed the lions unless you are one of their caretakers. But apparently, her favorite animal now are the lionesses. So I mentioned about my favorite animal, my children's favorite animals, and just some of the highlights of going to the zoo today. But something I want to bring up as well, because even though those are our favorite animals, the coolest thing I saw at the zoo today was totally unexpected. That being that we were walking through the zoo, we were actually looking for Dinosaur Island. And on our way there, and this was very early on, we didn't make it to Dinosaur Island until later on in our trip there. But as we were looking for Dinosaur Island, we came across the cheetah. The cheetahs were laying right out in front of the glass, and so everybody could see them. And I was trying to pick a conversation with them so I could just have a chat, get to know them a little bit better. But there were people around, and so I couldn't push them aside, and children as well. So I definitely didn't want to just shove them aside and start talking to the cheetahs like some sort of psychopath. But we had our chance to look at the cheetahs, and right before we left the cheetahs' den, what happened? Nobody knew exactly what to make of this. A snake was in their pen, and at first it looked like the cheetahs were totally cool with it. So there's one cheetah who sat out in front, and another cheetah that was laying behind it about a foot or two. And they were both kind of propped up, on their front paws, so their heads were sticking up so they could see us, but they were essentially laying down for the most part. And this snake, I'm guessing it was a garter snake, slithered in between them and rubbed up against the one that was in front. And at first, neither cheetah noticed this, but then the one behind it noticed. And you see, at first, everybody's thinking, okay, well, I guess there's a snake in there. So apparently they keep a snake in the cheetah den as well. No. The other cheetah started hissing at the snake. And the snake looked up at it, and you could tell it wanted nothing to do with it. It was terrified. And this thing, the cheetah opened its mouth. You could see its fangs, and it was hissing at it. And the snake turned around and started slithering as fast as it could toward the grass. And the way it was set up is that there's concrete in front of the window, and the cheetahs were laying on the concrete. The one behind the one in front was laying half on the concrete, half in the grass, and it glared at the snake as it slithered back into the grass. So my guess is that the snake accidentally found its way into the cheetah den, and it regretted it. I thought we were going to see a dead snake in there. I didn't want it to happen because the snake looked like it was terrified. The poor thing looked like it didn't know what to do, and it looked like it was just trying to cool down because it was a little bit warmer towards the beginning of the day there. If it had legs, it would have bolted, but it wouldn't have done it any good because cheetahs are the fastest land animal on the planet, so it would have been done. Dinosaur Island. We made it to Dinosaur Island, and wow, oh man, what a throwback. Such a cool experience Dinosaur Island was. And for the most part, Dinosaur Island is not a walkthrough, which, by the way, I have come to learn today that is exactly why I liked Prehistoric Forest, because there's a sense of adventure to it. You couldn't just walk around and loiter around the dinosaurs as you watch them just kind of be mechanical. Instead, there's a sense of adventure. There's a sense of urgency. There's a sense of danger and a sense of threat. And that's the whole thing about Prehistoric Forest from the get-go, is that you had the guns to shoot the dinosaurs, to protect the train. Well, in this, it was a boat ride. And the entryway, you see a couple of dinosaurs on your way in. And, of course, the most incredible one was the Tyrannosaurus Rex that was enormous. They always make the Tyrannosaurus Rex enormous, and I think they always make it a little bit bigger than what it really was. But really, really cool animatronic Tyrannosaurus Rex. And there was another one that looked like a Spinosaur, but wasn't a Spinosaur. I cannot remember its name. But as we were walking by, it surprised us and spat water all over us, whatever this thing was. And it was really funny. It got us into the mood of what was in store for us. So we walked around through the path where these dinosaurs were. Across a bridge, we got to look at the river a little bit. And then eventually we found the boat. So we got on this boat, and it took us down the path, and we got to see some more animatronic dinosaurs. And once again, there's just this feeling of Prehistoric Forest all over again. We didn't have guns to shoot at the dinosaurs, but again, there's a sense of adventure that these dinosaurs were gathering around the river to try to get us. And that was indicated because some of them actually shoot water out at you. And so you had to be careful not to get, you wouldn't get soaked. You get a little bit of wet maybe, but not soaked. It would be more refreshing than anything. But I do remember a couple of spots where the dinosaurs were spitting out water at us. And there's all sorts of dinosaurs along the route. I can't remember exactly. It was probably a 10-minute or so ride. It's just very relaxing, very scenic. You got to see some of the other animal dens, cages, whatever you want to call them. You got to see the gibbons, I think they were, from behind them. We were wondering how on earth are these apes, whatever you want to call them, not jumping over the little water enclosure that they have into our boat, because they were really almost that close. Like, they were really, really close to where we were. But also there was another one where there were some black swans and some pelicans. That was really beautiful as well. As we went on our trip, I believe that after we cleared one of the bridges that was above us, that we had some Dilophosaurs spitting out water at us, and that was really cool. But probably the highlight of it all for me, as cool as what the dinosaurs were. Well, there's two things, first of all. The first one, in regards to the dinosaurs, I remember that we saw a pelican. I pointed out the pelican. I was telling my wife and my kids about it. We all turned around and looked at the pelican. We were like, ooh, pelican. And all of a sudden there was a loud hiss. And then we got sprayed with water from these smaller dinosaurs that were on the side. And it was absolutely hilarious. I don't know if any of them screamed. I screamed. I was totally caught off guard by it, and it was hilarious. The second thing, and this is another one of those things that kind of made my day right here, is as you pass underneath the bridges, you actually saw, and they weren't real, but you got to see dinosaur fossils underneath the bridges as though they're still buried in the ground. And one of the fossil displays that was set up, and I was like, oh, my hat's off to the Columbus Zoo for this one, was a fossil of Godzilla fighting one of the dinosaurs. I was like, oh man, that's so cool. And I hope that Toho doesn't find out about it, by the way, because they're a real stickler when it comes to that sort of stuff. I don't know. Maybe they secured the rights to it somehow just for that display, or maybe there's enough artistic license exercised when they put it together that, nah, we can't nail them for anything here. So it was just the skeleton of Godzilla. It was a fossilized Godzilla fighting an enormous dinosaur. And it was just so cool. And I was like, wow, my hat's off to the Columbus Zoo, because this is just creative genius right here. So Dinosaur Island, highly recommend it if you got kids. I guess it's there till October 30th. I hope that they bring it back next year as well. I have no idea what their plans for the future are with Dinosaur Island. But to me, with how they have it set up, I don't know how you get rid of it. I mean, it's a boat ride. And the only thing that you could do outside of doing Dinosaur Island again is doing another sort of themed ride like that. But personally, I think that as long as they're able to keep it up, as long as it's affordable for them, they should keep on doing it. But after all, we didn't get to see everything at the Columbus Zoo today. There's so much we did not see. There are rides apparently that are open on the weekend, like roller coasters, water slides, and so forth. I mean, they're basically turning in. I really like what they're doing at the Columbus Zoo. They are making it a world-class zoo right now, and it was incredible how the place was laid out and how we were able to go to a restaurant, how we were able to easily find air conditioning. It was very easy to find a bathroom. Oh my goodness, you have no idea how big of a deal that is. I know that so often when I go to other zoos, it's almost impossible to find the bathroom. We found bathrooms around every corner just about. So it was just so nice and so convenient. So families, if you haven't made it out to the Columbus Zoo and you're in the area, do so. Go to the Columbus Zoo. Take your children. Go to Dinosaur Island. And if you're there on the weekend, try out some of the other rides and tell us about how you enjoyed those, if they're worth your time or not. For the price of admission, I would say that you can't lose. So, thank you for joining me again for today's episode of the Bill Seng Podcast. My name is Bill Seng. We are shooting for 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, 1,000 subscribers on Rumble. We also have a Buzzsprout page, and you can listen to us on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and so forth. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.